Hey everyone, Darren Cornell here. Welcome to part 6 of the Kylo Ren painting tutorial. Let me just do a quick check to make sure we are counting up, which means we are recording. My mic is on, the music is playing, quiet. I've lowered it down just a little bit because the position of my microphone is not 100% ideal where I would like it. I sort of need to be closer to the microphone and it's a lot clearer, but I have to sit further back because I'm painting, and I have to, when I'm looking down painting, I'm talking quieter, and I'm also talking away from the microphone, which is over there. I'm talking down essentially at my desk. And that means that my voice goes a lot quieter and isn't picked up as loud and as clear. So I've dropped the music down a little bit. It should just be enough to be heard in the background, so the studio isn't completely silent. Let me have a sip of coffee. So part 6 on Kylo, we were doing the skin last time. We were working on multiple layers of different shades, different colours, just adding bits of washes, bits of shading here, there and everywhere. Today we're going to do some flicking. Now, those of you who have stuck with me before and watched my videos, you know what I mean by that. Those of you who are new, flicking is the technique that I use to add random but controllable texture and visual detail to skin, or indeed, itchy nose, or indeed fabric, stone, anything like that, but I use it for skin. I've got a messy moustache and beard today. What's all that about? So let me get my keyboard and my trackpad out of the way because I do not need those. I will slide my painting board in to roughly where I need it. I'm going to take this hoodie off because it's way too hot. Can't reach my sleeve. There you go, I found it. Right. I'm in the right place. Everything's working. Okay, so I should be able to bring in the overhead camera and we'll get straight onto it. I'm just moving my water and the flow enhancer out the way, getting the palette where I think I want it. We've got Kylo here on a stick. Kylo on a stick. Let's bring the camera in, and now if you notice these things, which corner is it that you're looking at? These things here, that's black cardboard or black card that I cut strips of and taped to my lamp. Now, I initially had normal brown cardboard doing the same thing. It was ugly, but it did the job. But I realised anytime it came on cam, it stood out a mile, and also it wasn't doing the job as good as I needed it to. So I bought some black card and taped those. There's actually 2 pieces there because it wasn't long enough, across the whole length of the lamp. And what it does is the one on this side, this bit here, the one on the back of the lamp away from me, stops the light from shining on my computer screens, which means I don't get reflections and I can see where I'm looking at. The one on this side stops the light from shining in my face when I'm this close. Now you see, when I lean forward, I still get the light in my face, but if I'm back a little bit, it just puts this into shadow, which means I can have the light in front of me and I can talk to you and I'm not getting blinded. And it's only when I lean forward that the light shines on me, but at that point I'm looking down and I don't really see it anyway. It lights up all of this. Which is why I might do the camera settings and make this camera, if I've got the right one, a bit darker. There you go. So when I bring this in, it's not as dazzling. Okay, let's change to close-up camera with me in the corner down here. So this is roughly in front of me. If I can move this a little bit that way. We've got that, we've got some brushes, we've got all of the paints whoops, just there. The tilting I can do with the camera itself. It has its own hinge directly attached to the camera. The camera itself is attached to the magnetic clamp that attaches to the light with a ball joint, and so I can move this bit, which only moves in one direction, nice and quiet. If I move the whole camera, you get all those creaks, which I was trying to avoid, and it didn't work. Okay, that's about right. I can put that edge there. So if I'm going to be holding a thing painting on it, it's going to be about there. That's in the middle of the frame. I need to look down or hold it up. Yep, that's good enough. All right, let's bring in. I'm so paranoid about things not recording because it's happened so many times. I keep looking at the audio level meters and the record time where it counts up how long you've been recording to double and triple and quadruple check that I'm actually recording, which I do seem to be. Hopefully you can hear me. The microphone's a little bit high, but it is in front of me, so it should work good enough. All right, little Kylo. So we've done a load of work on, where's the focus? Not there, not there, not there, not there. Okay, so it's about there-ish. That's close enough. We've done a load of work adding reds and browns and all kinds everywhere, basically. We are now going to do some flicking. I'm going to hand paint most of his moles because they are, some of the big ones are actually sculpted on here, and so they are obviously very specific positioning. But even the smaller ones, it's the sort of thing where you could do it random and most people wouldn't know the difference. But if you can do something accurate like that, it is the sort of thing that some people will subconsciously know what his face looks like and where his moles are, and it will just look better if you can get them right. So I will hand paint most of his moles, definitely the big ones, a lot of the small ones, but then a lot of the overall skin detail we will just do with some random but controlled flicking, and we will do that now. Alright, so that's the colour that we've got on his skin. I'm just looking at, I've got 5 big photos on my screen that I am just looking at to try and judge how do I want to start adding this in. So I'm just going to go with a darker skin colour to start with. I think I'm going to do a mixture of brown rose, which is a sort of purplish, it's almost like a dark skin but it's purple, and beige red, which is the one that I've been using as the base layer. I'm going to do a mix of those because I will do that at some point. I know I want to do a bit of just the beige red colour. Oh, should have done this before I pressed record. But to start with, I want one that's just a bit more reddish purplish, and that's good for that, but that's too reddish purple, so that mixed with that, because it's only going to be thin, it's going to be really watered down, and it's going to be subtle, and it's the sort of thing that most people wouldn't notice and won't show up a huge amount. Wow, anytime you shake these up, it's like it puts them under pressure and loads just squirts out. The sort of thing where most of this stuff, especially the super subtle stuff, you'll do it and you look at it and you think, I can't see any difference, but it's there. I promise you it is there, and it does make a difference. Just trying to figure out what brush do I want to use. I'm going to use that one. Sometimes I use brushes for flicking like that are just a bit messy, slightly big, but a bit messy, and they're good enough to do. But this one I like because it's flat tipped, but it's not level, it's at an angle. And that lets you get a nice long flick out of it, and that gives you a good level of control. Just making sure there's no dust or anything on there. Completely forgot to change my water, but that's fine, it'll be good enough. So taking the lid off the flow enhancer, I've got those two colours there that I just put down, so I'm going to, do I mix them up with this or a different brush? I'm going to mix them up with a different brush. Have I got a messy... I don't know why I've started storing brushes on my desk again. I've got a big stand over there that holds all of my brushes, and for some reason the ones that I was using the most I've just left on my desk, and I should really get out of the... I've just dropped a brush. Ugh. I should really get out of the habit of leaving these on my desk, just because A, it clutters up my workspace, and B, it means that I'm never looking at the brushes over there, and I've got like 30 of them. So I should really do that more. Okay, so let's get... Oh, wow. That just picked up a load of crap off the floor. Yep, you're doing well so far, Darren. Well done. Okay, so I'm getting some of the, whatever that was, beige red. Adding a bit of the purpley, whatever it was called, brown rose. Still learning the names of these Vallejo colours. What's the colour of the skin? I think that's going to be good to start with. I might actually add some brown into that in a bit and make it a bit darker, and some red too, but for now I'm going to use that, and it's actually not that dissimilar to the colour of the skin, the colour of the head already. I'm just adding a load of water to this and some flow enhancer too to make it really, really, really thin down. I've just realised I haven't got any kitchen roll. I'll put that to the side there so I can get to it, but it's not in the way. Now then, let's see if this works. You're going to pick this up. I mean, this is almost like water at the moment. There's a really, that stuff in there, really thin, which is how we want it. And I just want to do a test, which is what I always do, because you don't want to flick paint that's too thick. Don't know if you're going to, let's pick a dark bit. See that dark bit there? So if I do this at an angle, see those, all those bits? That's an exaggerated version of what we're doing on the head. Now some of this flicking, because I haven't masked it off and it's fine, is probably going to go on this black collar. That's fine, I'm just going to give it another coat anyway, so I'm not bothered about that, because normally my heads don't have black collars on them, but it's easier to repaint it than to try and mask it off. Now this stuff, I'm just going to do a little bit to see how it looks. A little bit heavy. What I'm trying to do is add texture, but without making it look like it's got a load of painted dots. And if I ever do one and I think that particular blob is too thick, or all of those dots together have gone on too heavy, and I want it to be much more subtle, then I'll just dab it off with my finger, and that's fine. I'd wash my hands just before we started. But this is just adding controlled, because you can see I'm going around the head. I know you can't really see anything of what's happening, but I can just about, because I'm looking right up at them up close. I can see where they're going, and I'm not trying to cover the entire head evenly. I'm choosing where I want to put them, and some of them are going on slightly darker bits where they'll stand out a bit because this is a lighter colour. Some of them are going on bits that are almost exactly the same colour, but they just, even if it's subconscious, even if you don't realise, even if you don't see it, they are adding a slightly different texture. So let's get that first brush back that I was using. Just dry it off a bit because it was in water. I want to chuck some... what do I want to do first? Let's chuck a bit of red in. So I'm going to get some flat red. That sounds quite thin anyway, so I don't need to shake that too much. The thicker ones, you have to really give them a good shake, because the ball that's in there is just sort of sticking in a big blob of gloopy paint, and you've got to really get it moving around to mix them up. The watery ones, you don't have to do anywhere near as much. So I'm just doing, yeah, I knew that'd happen. Put a little tiny bit of red in, and it's all of a sudden the whole thing's gone bright pink, which is not what I want. So I'm putting some of the flesh. No, it's not flesh, Darren. Beige red. So the tanned flesh one, or the one that's close to being tanned flesh, beige red. I have to try and remember that. Add a little bit of the rose something. Brown rose. Just to make that sort of colour. So it's darker than it was, but it's not a super dark brown colour or anything. It's not going to be a huge difference from what's on the head, but it is going to be a different colour. And I'm just trying to gauge how much water I want to put in to thin it down. So we've now got that sort of colour. So let's bring this back. Let's wipe off what we were using there. Get some new paint on there. Oops. Just picked up some dried paint off the palette there. Okay, so same thing again. And you're basically, I can't do this because I've got paint on it now, but you're doing what I was doing before. You're just pulling your finger back and going all the way along the bristles, and that flicks the paint off. But you do it in a way, let's pick a dark bit. See that dark bit there? An exaggerated version is that is what we're doing, but subtle and small and tiny dots, and they could be small blemishes on the skin, they could be pores on the skin. You know, if you want it to be specific things, or it could just be something that breaks up the colours and gives a level of visual detail that you might not pick up on, but it is there, so it looks better. And this is something that I never used to do. Now, again, I know you're not going to be able to see this, and I can bring the... Hang on, I've got paint on my finger. If I go to the trackpad and go to camera 2, show webcam settings, where is it? Advanced, and focus a little bit higher, but not too high because it'll just bleach out. Now I know you can't see any difference there. There's nothing showing, and to be honest, even as I look at it, now that I've done it, when they go on, you can see them going on. If you're looking really up close to it, you can see them hitting, sometimes because they are wet paint, that's essentially liquid, tiny, minute, microscopic drops of liquid, but you can see them going on because of it, or because they are a slightly different colour, and as you're doing it, as you're flicking against the paint, you can see them going on, so you can control where they are. Once you've stopped, especially with the subtle ones, you go in and have a look, and for 3/4 of them, you're like, I don't know where they are, because you can't see. That's sort of the point. Most of them have blended in, but they are different. They've just blended so well, they are so subtle that you can't visually spot them straight away, which is good because we don't want them to look like that. That's why we do different shades and different colours. But some of them here and there, you can go, oh, there's, there they are, against that darker shade or whatever. Or if we do a darker ones against a lighter shade, which we're going to do, we're going to make this colour a little bit darker. Now I'm going to add more red and more brown. Might even, just for a change and just to show you that you can do stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think of at the start, let's get some grey blue. Darren, what are you painting grey blue on his face for? Because if it's subtle and if it's mixed in with a skin colour, it is enough to make, you know how that you could have shadows on a face or something, and if you actually looked at them you wouldn't necessarily know what colour the shadows were. Well, it's just darker skin or something, but they look like shadows, but you don't know what colour they are, but they look like shadows. This is that sort of thing. It's just going to be adding slightly darker, slightly greyish, slightly bluish purple maybe, marks all over, but tiny things that may look like pores on his skin or just break up the flatness of the colour without you realising, without you knowing what colour it is. It's just something that's there. So we're going to take that blue grey and mix some of that in with the skin colour that we've got, and already I can see it's going a little bit more brown. It's almost like a greyish brown. I don't know if you can see any difference there, but as soon as I put it in, it's like, whoa, that's cool, which is what I want. So I'm going to throw a load of water in that because I do want this to be subtle. Load of water, equal flow enhancer just to break it up, and we're going to do the same thing again. So get some liquid on the brush, all the way around, that way around, and then we're going to go, let's see, on that red bit. Got it. My hand blocks the thing. There you go. If I do like that on the red, see that? But I'm doing it more like, oh no, not that. There's still loads of paint on there. It's really subtle and gentle and soft, and to the point where you can't hardly see it, but it's just doing it and it's going all over. Now when you do it hard like that to, make a point, it goes off in strips. It goes off like in a big line away from the brush. But when you do it softly and carefully, and you're moving the brush around as you're doing it so you don't get any accidental lines, then it covers everywhere in a way that you want. So I'm doing this again. Where's that focus gone? Focus. Right, there. So let's do it this little one so I can see the first one go on and see how they look. They're quite good. I like that. Still skin colour, slightly darker than a lot of the skin, although lighter than some of it, but different enough that it breaks it up. big bit just went bloop. And when you're doing this, you've got to pay attention, especially if you're doing it with dark colours, as it is very easy to accidentally put some on and have one blob go somewhere that you don't spot straight away, and you end up with this dark spot of brown paint on your face or something. And if you don't spot it, you come back to it and it's dried, and then you've got to paint over it to fix it. And you can do it, it's easy enough, it's only a small thing, but it's easier to spot it when you're actually doing it, because all you got to do is get your little finger and just go dab, and it comes off. So pay attention when you're doing it. Turn the brush the right way around down. That really helps. So just put a bit more paint on here. Ooh, that came off a bit heavy. Okay, sorry, I was holding that too far down. That was probably out of focus then, wasn't it? Let me see. Just having a look for myself. That's really starting to look good already. So, I know when I hold it closest to the camera, it looks a bit more bleached out because the light is quite close. But you will just have to take my word that it looks okay. Let me just get some of that paint off the flicking brush so it doesn't dry on and give me problems, because we're doing a bit more. Give that a quick dry and we're ready to go. Okay, so I want to add on now. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take that colour that we used, which was the beige red and the brown rose mixed together, and then we added some red to it, and then we added some grey blue to it. I'm now going to add some, I'm going to add a brown. I could add black brown, which is essentially umber, it's really dark. I'd have to be careful adding that, and I might do that last. I actually want to add some brown to it though. Do I do a light brown, which is sort of that colour, or a hull red, or mahogany? What's that? No, that's flat brown. Where's mahogany? I know I've got mahogany. Mahogany! Oh, there's mahogany. So they're sort of similar, just slightly different. I'm not going to do light brown. I was going to do that. I might. I don't know. Sometimes I'll do some flicking and then I'll go back and do some painting. Why am I talking to you? I'm a little down in the corner. Sometimes I'll do some flicking and do that, do a bunch of layers, go around it, do the whole thing several times, then go back and do more painting and do washes and dry brushing and just actual painting all over the face, and then go back and do more flicking on top to finesse bits that I've already done, or to strengthen bits that I want to bring out a bit stronger, or whatever. It's more layers. And as long as you are heading in the right direction and you know what you're aiming for, more layers is good. As long as they are thin layers, so you're not having chunky paint. But the more layers, the more variation, the more subtle differences all over the place, that's what makes them look good. Because that's what faces are. Faces are made of a million different subtle things going on. And if you just paint skin and add some shading, it's going to look like a toy. Why is my phone beeping? Beeping! Phone! Stop it! Where's my volume? I forgot to turn my volume off. I've still got my phone on my daytime settings. I need to turn it to eeny, meeny, miny evening setting. There you go. Yep, evening. So evening turns it as at most notifications don't come through, but phone calls do, because I might get a phone call from my wife or something and I need to take that, and I'll pause the video for that, as long as I'm not live. But most notifications, don't care, go away, I will see you later. So let's add some add some flat brown to it. No, mahogany brown. Change my mind. There you go. Wrong camera, Darren. Closer with the corner. Right. Mahogany brown. I'm going to add some of that to it. Are we still recording? Yes. Just suddenly had a paranoid attack of, Darren, it's not recorded. Tis. Okay. So, I've just put down, ooh, that focus is close now, isn't it? That colour, that brown. I'll take a bit of that, mix it in with this skin colour that was already a little bit more grey because of the blue, and this brown's going to make it a bit darker on top. So if I can put it, let's see, so there's a light skin colour. If I put a blob there, you can see the difference. That's that colour, which still looks like a lightish colour, but you put it on top of a light skin, you can see the difference. So I'm going to get some of that. I think that's subtle enough that it's different enough, but I don't want it to be, you know, dark brown or black looking spots all over the head, because that's going to stand out too much. This is subtle but noticeable. That's what we're going for. So I'm going to, same thing again, let's get some paint on this, wipe off most of it so the brush is wet. Where's the focus? It's got paint on it, but it's not a huge amount. But if I bring this up, let's get my hold of this so I can do it. I've got the camera zoomed in, so it's probably a little bit too big. But if I aim for there, so you can't really see it unless I really go for it. There you go, you can see that going on there. That's what we're doing. That's what we're putting on. I'm just going to do a couple of extra ones to make sure that I've got most of it off. Where my focus be? There you go. Now then, let's see. I'm going to try and do some on his nose. Do some around his cheeks. Now I can see that going on. Probably no different to you, but I can see it going on both in terms of the fact that it's liquid going on a, you know, microscopic drops of liquid going on a dry surface, but also I can see the subtle change in colour. Which is what we want. Let's get some more paint, do that again. Because after a while it starts drying up and you end up just flicking almost dust at the head because the paint is dried, because the stuff you're working with is so thin. And then you end up flicking coloured dust at the head, which doesn't really stick, but also just makes things a bit chalky and weird, which we don't want. Now I can see, there you go, see I said they were going to be hitting the black colour. They are, but it's such thin paint, they're not sticking out in any way. So when I go back in to do the neat edge, that tiny little edge that touches up against the skin, to go back in to do that, I'll just go and cover them up and they'll be fine. I'd rather do that than try and mask that off. Now I'm just looking at this and trying to imagine what else needs to be done. Where's it going to go? What's it going to look like with his eyes? What's it going to look like with his eyebrows? What's it going to look like with his hair finished? With his lips done? Is there any more colouring to add to the skin? So I'm trying to picture the whole thing. And I think a little bit of red. I think we've done some darker stuff. I think I'm going to just clean most of that paint off the brush. We've still got red there, which, to be honest, I can use because it's still paint. Let's get some of that red. Throw that in there. Now I'm going to make this fairly red here, so that's really quite red. More red than I would initially think of to do, if I'm honest, if I wasn't talking and filming at the same time and being distracted. But honestly, if I thin it down, this is showing that you can work with things and there's no mistakes and you can't do anything wrong. It's just stuff, and often things that you don't think of are things that work out the best. So I took that colour, which went a bit more red than what I was initially thinking of, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go with that. Instead of trying to make it a lighter colour that I was initially sort of planning, I'm going to take that colour, thin it down a bit more, and do more subtle flicks on top. In fact, what I think I'm going to do is take some water, put the water separate. I know you can't see that. I'm trying not to move it around because it'll go over. Just put some water on there. Take a little bit of that. Put that on there. So that's super thin down compared to that, which, even though I thinned it down, still fairly quite thick. So I'm going to take this stuff, which is almost all water. Let's do a little bit on my thumb to see what it looks like. Now I can see the colour just there, above the tip of my finger there, going in that direction. That's the colour, but it's mostly water. It's really so thin. Where's the focus? About there. So with this red stuff, I'm going to do some... These blobs are going on a little bit bigger. Do some on the side of his nose. I'm going to aim for some on his cheeks. Have a look to make sure they're going on evenly. Let's do a bit around the centre of his forehead where it joins on his nose. Now these ones are going on a bit bigger, the blobs of water, because it's much more watery. This is almost water, this, but you can see colour in there. And that's good, because different size blobs, again, it's like painting it by hand. You're getting different variations that you might not think to do, or even be able to do if you were trying, because you wouldn't think of it. Random accidents are brilliant if you are doing them in a controlled way. And I always have them on all of my things. It's why I like doing it this way, because everything is random and different and unplanned in the way that nature is. And you will get some of the best results by doing stuff that you didn't mean to do. It sounds silly, but trust me, it works. I'm going to do some of those along the top of his forehead. Oh, that looked good. Oh, I like that. See? I've just done a bit along the line of his forehead, towards the top half of his forehead. You probably can't even see them. Or you might be able to see them a little bit there. Sort of... Oh, where's the focus? Bloody hell. About there. And I've just done some up there. And they look really good. I like like it when things go well. Alright, happy with that. That's very good. So let me... because I don't like keeping the focus up here for too long, because it's difficult to paint like that. Because you have to hold it up, and it's just awkward to paint, and I can't look at it properly. I need to be able to look at it at a normal distance to see, okay, what needs to be done, you know, what's coming up next. Oh, excuse me. Alright, let's see. I'll do a little bit of pink. Okay, so I'm going to just wipe off most of that quickly. Now I don't do too much here, because what you can do if you're doing this, even though this is adding... where my camera be? Even though... you see how much quicker those buttons are? If you are doing this, and even though this is adding dots all over the head or the thing that you're painting, and it's adding detail that's breaking up the surface. So if you've painted skin colour, whatever that colour is, and even if you've then gone in with some shadows under the eyes, or shadows around the nose, or making the ears red, like you can see the way that colour is much more red than that bit, which is paler than that bit. Those sort of variations, you do those, but it's still colour. You go in doing this, and it goes brrr, and then you get a different colour, and it goes brrr, and you do that, and then some of it you'll do all over just to break it up. Some of it you'll do in particular places. Some of it on the cheeks a certain colour, some of it on the forehead a certain colour, and you choose what you're doing where and when. And even though that is breaking up the colour, if you do too much of that, you end up with a flat colour that's just a sort of dirtier, messier colour than what it was in the first place. You can't do too much of it, and you've got to pay attention to what you're doing. Now, if you do that, you can fix it, because you just go back and take it back. You get that initial skin colour, and you don't have to paint over the whole thing. You just do some of these dots, or get a small brush like, I don't know, wrong camera, Darren, something like that. And you get a small brush, and you just paint on the initial skin colour here and there to break up the layer of messy dots that you've done. And you can always take it back just by going back to that initial colour. But you just keep your eye on it. You can't destroy it, you can't ruin the head, as long as it's going on in thin layers. If you go paint on with thick paint, it will end up building up. If you're doing it thin layers, you'll be fine. Or you'd have to do a lot to ruin it doing it that way. But as long as you're keeping an eye on it, you should be able to go, you know what, I think that's enough for now, let's do something else. And then you can go back to do more flicking if you want to. What was I going to do? I was talking and I was going to do something else and I completely forgot. So, sorry, where's that camera? Camera with me in the corner. See, that's looking more brown now all over than it was when I was thinking it was maybe looking a bit pale, because we've gone on with all of these different colours and gone all over. And that has the overall effect of making it a little bit darker, because those are the colours that we're doing. Now, I might want to go on with a little... oh, that's what I was going to do. I wanted to do a bit of pink, didn't I? I think I might... oh... is that too much? Is that too much, Darren? I might mix it in. Right, let's be brave. Salmon rose. It's supposed to be that sort of colour. I was going to do something a bit more subtle, but you know what? Let's try this. I'm going to put a blob down next to the other paints. I was going to do it neat. I was going to just use this, but what I might do is mix it in with the other paints. Let's see how it goes. Let's put a bit down. Let's have a look. Where are we? See, it's so pale. There you go. That's sort of the colour. It's so pale that when I bring it too close to the camera, it gets all bleached out. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking at his pictures. I do want it to be very thin, so I might put some over there, but with a lot of water and flow enhancer, and then look at it and think, is that going to be subtle enough to work and do the thing that I want, or do I just want to mix that colour in with the other colours? You know what, I think that'll work by itself. That seems to be, where's the bit? I've just done that, mixed it with some water and flow enhancer, dabbed a bit around thin on this rough skin colour, which is loads of layers from loads of heads, to see what it looks like. And it's going on subtle enough, but it's also still light and breaking up the colour. So if I get some of that, let's just do a quick test. I think that's going to work. Because what I want to do here is just break up. Too much blobby. Break up some of the stuff that I was doing there with some light underskin colour. Just to give another layer, another, texture, so that you've got some darker, you've got a colour and you've got darker colours blobbed on top of that, and then you've got lighter colours blobbed on top of that. All adds to layers and layers and layers, and that's what makes the head work. Now, forgive me if that was out of focus. I wasn't really paying attention, and I was just focusing on the head. No, that's actually quite good. Yeah, I like that. Because what I might want to do next, which we'll do in the next video, I think, because wow, we're already up to 50 minutes almost, is start going back with some thin washes. You know the way I was doing washes around the corner of the nose, the corner of the nostrils, around the cheeks and under the eyes, that sort of small, focused and controlled washes. Not the sort of all over everything wash, but just little tiny, thin, small painting, but with really thin colours. The way we were doing that before we did all of that flicking, I'm going to go back with some of that type of painting, but add some more tints on top of the flicking that we've just done, but just in certain spaces. Maybe the tip of the nose, maybe the bridge of the nose where it goes onto the cheeks, just some things like that. And, under the eyes, I want to make sure we get the shading under the shadows and stuff under the eye sockets just right before we start doing things like eyebrows and eyes and moles and all of that kind of stuff. But let me see if I can adjust this focus. This is probably going to look terrible. The problem is you can see shadow, light. This is having all of the light hitting it. When I bring it back here, it goes into shadow because the webcam gets in the way, which is sort of difficult. Let me see if I can tilt the webcam forward, which is away from what I normally need, but it lets me bring it up. Now, let me see, what can I do? Now, because the closer you bring it, it gets too bright. Because can I block off some of that light? There's the focus. The focus is about there. Okay, so that's the focus. Can I make it darker? Ooh, I don't want to mess around with this because it always messes up. The thing is, you might be able to see it anyway. Like on my preview, it just looks way bleached out. Okay, I'm going to use one of my main camera settings on this close-up camera, and see if I can turn it to a darker one. Oh, it's not even darker, it's brighter. That's even worse. Oh, that was a terrible idea. Okay. Seeing as I can always reset it, let me try and turn down the gain. Well, that hasn't made it flickery, that's good. Often when I do that, the whole thing starts strobing and going weird. So let's look at, let's say, the forehead. Let me find the focus. Where's the damn focus? Okay. In fact, I can zoom that in more, you know. Let's... not zoom it in. Take the focus even higher. No, I can take it even higher. This is going to work. Okay. So I take that right up. Well, apart from the fact that I can see microscopic hair stuck right in the middle, which I'll get off. I'll just scrape that off with a craft knife. If you look on the forehead, look at the amount of stuff that's going on and all the different layers. You've got skin, and you've got pale skin, and you've got darker skin, and you've got speckles, and you've got bits that are painted on and bits that are dry brushed on. You got all of that stuff going on just on a forehead, and you've got some dots, and all of that stuff is the background that you paint everything else on, like the eyes and the eyebrows and all of that stuff. Having that as your skin is what helps something look real. And when you add things like stubble, and stubble is a thing that I do different now. I used to just paint a wash, but now I do wash plus some of this flicking to give a bit of life to the stubble. Even if it's someone who doesn't have like thick stubble, they always have some. So let me try and get... There you go. You can see the cheek and the nose, and difficult holding this because I've got to hold it at such a precise distance. And it's hard on that side because it's catching all the light. We'll do it on that side. You can see all the tiny variations on the nose and the cheeks and everything. And the forehead, again, do it from that angle. No, it's catching all the light. That doesn't work. But you saw it before. So that, apart from that piece of hair that's appeared from somewhere in the middle, that is how we end up with a good looking head, instead of just skin colour all over it. We do this again and again and again and again, and we go back with tiny thin washes, little controlled bits of colour. Do that, different colour, different shade, different colour, different shade, do some more flicking, and that becomes the alive base, instead of the base colour being like what I used to do when I started out. Let me change back to that. Let me get this out of the way. When I started out, the heads I would paint would be, that's leather brown, that's not the right one, tanned flesh. I would paint a head in tanned flesh. I would dry brush with a slightly paler version, which would be pale flesh with tanned flesh. I would mix a couple of those together, or more of that, a little bit of that, just to lighten it down, dry brush that all over, and then I would mix in some red of some kind. I haven't got the old versions of that. Mix in a bit of red, do some washes on the cheeks, add some shadows under the eyes, stuff like that, and that would be it. And it was enough to make it look better than what it was from the factory, because I was choosing the right colours, I was mixing the right colours, just to make it look more human than the factory paint. So it was better, but it was nothing compared to what I'm doing now, whereas that was essentially flat colour. We are not flat colour. That, having that much detail, that much subtle stuff going on all over it with layers of washes and little bits of painting is the thing that at the back of it all, when you add on lips and eyes and eyebrows and hair and everything, that at the back of it all is what helps make things look alive. And then you add stubble and stuff like that, and veins and all of that kind of stuff, and that's what makes them look alive. So that's what we're doing. That has almost been an hour. That flew past. I don't know if that was quick for you or if it was just quick for me because I was doing a lot, but that did not feel like an hour. Okay, so that was part 6. I will see you in part 7, where we will do whatever it was I just said we were going to do before. I've completely forgotten what I said now. Little bits of painting, thin wash, controlled painting, maybe some more shadow work under the eyes, bit of work on the nose maybe, stuff like that. And maybe do some stubble, which is going to be a mixture of, I was going to say before, I used to just do a greyish blue version. My old one was called blue grey. This one now is called grey blue. It's essentially the same colour. I used to just do a wash of that around the, where stubble is. Fumph, that was done. That was enough. 12 years ago, 13 years ago. Now I do that more controlled with a few more layers and do some flicking of different shades to build up a bit of life to the stubble, so it's not just a airbrushed colour. We want it to look like it's built up of millions of things, and that adds a whole degree of life and realism by itself. So we might do some of that next time. Now, he hasn't got a lot of it because he's relatively clean shaven, although he's got quite a prominent moustache stubble and a bit around his chin. Even when he's clean shaven, you can still see the shape. So we'll do that, do some painting, and then see where we're at in terms of just checking that the colour is okay, and if it is, then we go on to eyebrows and eyes and all of those kinds of things, and we take it from there. So that's done for now. I'm gonna make another coffee or something probably. Look after yourselves, look after all the people around you, be nice to the planet, be nice to animals. I will see you on the next video. Have a good week or weekend or wherever you are, whenever it is that you're watching this video, and we'll see you for part, what was it? What was this? Was this 6? I need to write things down. I think this was 6. In that case, I'll see you for part 7. Thanks for sticking with me. I didn't realise this was going to be as long as it was. It flew past for me. It feels like I've been painting for 25 minutes or something. But I'll see you next time, and we'll carry on, and we'll take this further and we'll make it a bit better. Right, I'm going now because I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Take care, everyone. Bye.